wanted to spend some time today talking about the bill that's on the floor. I want to thank my colleagues from both Oregon and from Virginia. I've enjoyed working with them. The bill we have on the floor is one of the reasons why I'm leaving Congress at the end of this year. Because here's why the American people are disgusted with us. We're going to put off till tomorrow what we should be doing today. We should be fixing this problem instead of delaying the problem. I concur a lot with what my colleague from Virginia said. But the fact is there's no courage, there's no guts, there's no intentioned actions to do what is the best thing in the long term for this country in this body anymore. So we have a bill that comes to us. I appreciate the fact that the chairman wants to try to fix it. But if you vote for this bill that's on the floor today, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. You are part of the problem. There's 4 budget points of order that lie against this bill. Why in the world would there be 4 points of order lying against this bill? We're only going to vote on one of them. It's because it's a sham. It's a lie. The pay-fors aren't true. It's nothing but gimmicks. It's corruptible. There's no integrity in what we're getting ready to vote on in terms of being truthful with the American public, in terms of being truthful with the people that are providing the care for Medicare patients. I have a little bit of experience, 25 years of practicing medicine, and I can tell you what's wrong with the payment system. We have a payment system both from the insurance industry and from Medicare and Medicaid that says see as many patients as you can if you want to pay your overhead, because we're going to pay you based on a code rather than how much time you spend with a patient. And the first thing a doctor's taught in medical school is sit down and listen to the patient. If you'll spend time with the patient will tell you what's wrong with them. And we know that's true because we have 2 sets of data now, both on the concierge medicine that has come up in the last few years, as well as what we've seen in one of the great HMOs on the West Coast, that they order 62% fewer tests when they're listening to the patient. One of the biggest costs for Medicare and one of the biggest wastes for Medicare is tests. Why do doctors order tests? Because they didn't spend the time figuring out what's really wrong with you, so they order a bunch of tests to try to help them. Whereas if they'd spend another 15 or 30 minutes with you, most of those tests, most are not without risk, would have never been performed. So here we have the Senate doing what we usually do. We're putting off to tomorrow when we can actually fix the real problem now. And it comes to another principle of medicine. The principle of medicine is that you don't treat symptoms. You treat disease. When you treat the disease, the symptoms go away. If you just treat symptoms, you'll never find the disease. You'll cover up the disease. That's exactly what we're doing. Now, the SGR was a great idea. It started in 1995 in the Ways and Means Committee in the House under former Chairman Bill Archer. And had we followed it, we would have seen some significant reining in of the costs of care and Medicare. But what happened? We cut spending, we cut reimbursement rates one time. And instead of responding to the political clamor of the provider group, we fixed it, a short-term fix. And we've been doing that ever since 1999, short-term fixes. So we're not fixing this problem today. What we're doing is taking a big old can and kicking it down the road. And worse than that, we're not even being truthful about what we're doing. One of the little gimmicks is shift $5 billion of sequester from 25 to 24 and say you save money. But we all know that this little red area here will go right back over here and we'll spend that money. Nobody believes it. It's kind of the wink and the nod to the American public, oh, look at us. That's why they're disgusted. There's no truth. There's no honesty about what we're doing. And that's just one. Here's the other offsets. The sequester was the one I just showed. Savings from future Medicare cuts, $2.3 billion. They will never occur. If you think they'll occur, you obviously think if they will occur, then we should have fixed the real problem, the real dis-ease of Medicare today. But we didn't. And so the actions will continue to be exactly the same. That $2.3 billion will never be materialized whatsoever. It's a falsehood. $4.4 billion to Medicaid. It won't ever come about. That's in the future. But we'll take the money now to pay for it. So in this bill of approximately $20 billion, half of the savings that we say are there aren't there. And every member of this body knows that. So when they vote for this today and vote against the budget point of order, what they're saying is, I'm dishonest, I'm playing the game, I will not stand up for truth so the American people actually know what we're doing. I do not believe in transparency. I do not believe that we ought to have to live within our means, that we ought to make hard choices, just like every American family out there does today. Finally, some of this is very unfair to the very people that worked on this with the committees, because they made some commitments for real cuts to them to get a long-term fix. Guess what? The real cuts come, that portion that's actually paid for, comes to just pay for it for 1 year. So not only are we dishonest with the American people, we are dishonest with the stakeholders who negotiated this for a 10-year elimination. The budget points of order against this bill. Just so we know what we're talking about. It violates PAYGO. Plain and simple, violates PAYGO. It increases the on-budget deficit. This bill does. I dare somebody to come down to the floor and tell me it does not. It does. It violates the Ryan Murray 2014 of the Congressional Budget Act because it violates the top line. Nobody's going to come down here and say it doesn't. You won't hear one speaker come down here and say it doesn't violate that. It does. They know it does. But they won't speak the truth. This bill also spends money in excess of Finance Committee's allocation. Another point of order against the Budget Act. Everybody knows that's true, but they won't come down and say it doesn't, but they'll just vote for it. And it also has language in it within the Budget Committee's jurisdiction that has not been reported or discharged. So we're totally ignoring the process, like the chairman of the Finance Committee would like to have, so we can do the expedient political thing to take some pressure away, just like we did on the flood insurance bill. It got a little hot in the kitchen. Instead of actually cooking the omelet, we threw the eggs in the trash can and ran out of the room. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. So we're putting off, again, the hard choices. Let me tell you why this is important. The senator from Virginia outlined this a little bit. When I came to the Senate, which was 9 years ago, the individual debt each one of us held on the national debt was under $32,000. It today sits at $54,800 and some odd dollars. But you can kind of get lost in that. What you have to think is, well, what's my family's obligation for what we haven't paid for within the federal government? Let me tell you what it is. For every family in this country whose average income is $53,000 per year, the same as it was in 1988 now in terms of real dollars, we've gone backwards. Your obligations now are $1.1 million per family. And we're going to play this game again, and we're going to add another $10 to $12 billion between now and April. We're going to claim it doesn't add anything. But we're going to add another $10 billion so we can get away from the heat, so we can get out of the kitchen, so we won't be responsible. Which is more responsible, to tell the truth about where we really are, or to actually profess an untruth to your constituents in this vote this evening? Because that's what it is. Mark my words, every senator that votes for this bill that came out of the House will be telling an untruth to the American people, because they know it's not paid for. They know it violates all sorts of rules around here. They even violated the House rules as they passed it. All to meet a deadline? Let me give you a little history. We've missed the deadline before on SGR fixes. Does it cause additional work in providers, hospitals, doctors' offices? Yes. Does it provide additional work for CMS? Yeah. Do we eventually catch up on it? Yes. So what's the hurry? Why not really treat the real disease? And the real disease is we have a payment system that is not good for patients and is not good for providers. And you can't fix it over a weekend, but you can fix it. And if we don't fix it, as the chairman would like to see a long-term fix, I don't necessarily agree with everything he wants to do, but I applaud his effort to get a long-term. If we don't fix it, we don't deserve to be here. There's no credibility left. There's no legitimacy left if we pass this bill. It's all a pack of untruths. Untruths to the stakeholders, untruths to the American public, and most importantly, untruth to that generation that's coming up that's going to pay the bill for our untruth. This isn't an unfixable problem. It's a problem that hadn't gotten the attention at the time it needs, and it reflects poor leadership on the Congress and the committees. We knew this was coming up a year ago. The senator from Oregon can totally be forgiven because he wasn't in charge of the Finance Committee until a month ago. But there's no denying the fact that this problem was there. And doing a patch, and even doing some of what Senator Wyden wants to do, won't fix the ultimate problem. Think about the interaction of you with your caregiver. The average time in a doctor's office when you go in before you're interrupted by your physician is now 6 seconds. You go in, sit down, why are you here today? And you start to say it, and the first thing you get is interrupted. Why? Because that physician knows he needs to get to the next patient to pay the bills, because we're paying bills based on CPT codes. Rather than paying that physician based on the amount of time they spend with the patient and including outcome measures. We got a system that's designed to be defrauded and create overutilization. We designed it. We can fix it. Voting for this bill doesn't fix anything except a little heat in the kitchen. And when we come back the next time, the heat's going to be hotter. and hotter and hotter. This bill is a cowardly response to the problem, the real problem that we have. It's time we quit being cowards. I yield the floor.